I recently discovered that my wife is cheating on me, and she and Josh don't know that I know. Josh, by the way, is, or rather was, my best friend. I know, it's a cliché, but clichés become clichés because they happen so often. I had no idea how to deal with this. I couldn't understand why he would be with my wife. Don't get me wrong, my wife is definitely a beauty. She's in her 30s and, even after having 2 kids, she looks damn sexy in a bikini. But Josh's wife, Carla, is just as attractive, if not more so. Carla is quite tall, standing at 5 feet 7 inches, with red hair that falls to the middle of her back and green eyes that seem to see right into your soul. I found out her measurements are 36, 23, 34, and I won't deny that she's quite a turn-on. After discovering Josh and Heather's affair, I did nothing for a few weeks while trying to figure out what to do. I loved Heather and wondered if there was any way to save our marriage. It seemed unlikely, but I couldn't be sure until we talked. On Friday, I decided to meet with her, but I had to postpone it until Monday. Why wait 2 days? My wife got a call from a very sick friend who needed help, so she rushed out to assist. I had no doubt that if I called Josh and asked if he wanted to play golf on Saturday, Carla would tell me that Josh wasn't home and had gone away for the weekend. My parents had taken the kids to their lake house, so being away from my wife and kids meant I'd have a quiet weekend alone, and it might very well be the last peaceful weekend I'd have. On the way home, I stopped to buy a case of beer and decided that by Sunday evening, all 24 bottles would be gone. When I got home, I put on shorts and a t-shirt and headed to the kitchen. Dinner was going to be simple. I opened a package of hot dogs and put them in a pot to boil, chopped an onion, and took a can of baked beans out of the pantry. I poured the beans into a pan, put it on the stove, and opened a second can of beer. As I rummaged through the refrigerator for mustard, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Carla standing there. She was wearing a tank top with no visible bra and slippers, and her nipples were pressing against the fabric of her shirt. I was instantly aroused. "Are you busy?" she asked. "Partially. I'm cooking dinner and drinking beer. Do you mind if I join you?" she replied. "Not at all. I could use some company," I said, stepping aside to let her in. We went into the kitchen, and she sat down at the table. I knew she didn't drink beer, so I opened a bottle of Merlot and poured her a glass. "Dinner is nothing special," I said. "Just hot dogs and baked beans. Quite simple." The hot dogs were boiling and the beans were bubbling, so I turned off the heat, moved the pans to the cool side of the stove, and took 2 plates from the cupboard. I handed one to Carla. She helped herself to 2 hot dogs and some beans. We sat down to eat, and I asked, "What brings you here? Do you know where Heather is?" "She went to help a sick friend," Carla replied. "I wonder when that happened. When did she leave?" "This is Josh's disease," she said, looking surprised. "He looked perfectly healthy when he left the house. You know, Josh and Heather are in on this, right? They're now in room 130 at Arrowhead Lodge. I knew something was off for a couple of weeks. I discovered she's cheating on me." "How did you find out?" "I found a condom wrapper in his pants pocket while doing laundry. We're trying to get pregnant and don't use condoms, so when I saw that, I realized he was unfaithful. I decided not to have his child if we get divorced, as I don't want to be a single mother. I used part of my father's inheritance to hire a private investigator. They meet for long lunches, and whenever he says he's working late, he's actually with Heather." "How did you find out?" "I was in the basement working on a bookcase when the phone rang. Heather must have answered upstairs just before I did, and I heard her mention the word lover right as I picked up. I listened as Josh told her they'd have to skip their usual long lunch because he had an important meeting. Heather said she would miss him and he'd need to make it up to her next time." "And you didn't do anything?" "I'm still figuring out what to do. I've decided to confront her when she gets home and see how it plays out." "What are you going to do?" "You'll understand soon enough." I looked at her in confusion. "What will I understand?" She stood up, walked over, and sat on my lap. I see the way you look at me, and I know if we weren't married, you'd be interested in me. Even though we're still married, we don't have to stay faithful to Josh and Heather, they've taken that obligation away from us. She hugged me and started to excite me. I shifted to get more comfortable and looked at her in amazement. She leaned in, and our lips met. Carla broke the kiss and said, "I'm going to take revenge." Even though we planned to have a baby, I managed to avoid sex during my fertile period. I went to the doctor and got a diaphragm. "How much do you want revenge on Josh?" "Why do you ask?" "I plan to get full revenge. I'm currently in my most fertile state, and my diaphragm is in my purse." That means exactly what it means. Carla was right, it would be complete revenge if Josh raised my child thinking it was his. I smiled while caressing Carla. I found out she wasn't wearing underwear. She moaned and whispered, "Oh yes." I broke the kiss and said, "I want you on Heather's side of the bed." She got up from my lap and said, "Let's go." We hurriedly undressed, and when we reached the bedroom, Carla, naked, looked stunning. She had something I'd only seen in magazines, she was completely shaved. I've mentioned before that Heather is beautiful, but why Josh would cheat on me with her when he had someone like Carla was beyond me. Carla seemed to be thinking the same thing. She looked at my naked body with confusion and said, "I don't understand. Your manhood is so much better than Josh's. Why would Heather cheat on you when she has this at home? It doesn't make sense. But it doesn't matter now, you're here. You're right, others don't matter now. Take me to bed and make love to me," I said, pointing to Heather's side. Carla smiled and replied, "You take me on Heather's side, and then we'll go to me, and I'll take you on Josh's side. Deal?" She lay down on the bed and demanded hard, passionate sex. I obliged, and we moved together like animals in heat. She begged me not to stop and to continue forever. Her words drove me wild, and I wanted to give her everything. We reached an intense climax together, sweating and spent. I collapsed beside her on the bed. Carla propped herself up on her elbow and looked down at me, saying, "I can't believe this. Heather might be getting it, but she wants my husband. We have the rest of the evening, all of tomorrow, and part of Sunday together. By the time we're done, you won't care if Heather comes home." After a bit of rest, we played another round, and it was just as satisfying as the first. Carla asked, "Aren't you going to send me home?" I pulled her closer and said, "Stupid girl," and we fell asleep in each other's arms. The next morning, I woke up before Carla. As I looked at her, I couldn't shake the thought that my betrayal with Josh's wife had brought me down to the same level as Heather. Sure, Heather's betrayal had freed me from my vows, but that didn't change the fact that I had also betrayed my marriage. I couldn't pretend to be morally superior in my conflict with Heather. True, she didn't know about my affair, but I did. I didn't notice Carla was awake until she said, "You look deep in thought. What's on your mind?" I told her, and she replied, "I made the same promises to Josh when I married him, so I guess that makes me a liar too. But I don't see it that way. Josh made the same vows I did and then broke them. To me, that means we had a contract, and if I remember correctly from my business law classes, Josh breached that contract. While marriages aren't treated the same way, it doesn't change the fact that Josh and I had a contract, and he broke it. For me, that means I'm no longer obligated to honor it. You should view your marriage the same way. If your partner breaches the contract, you're free to do what you want." We changed the subject, and she suggested, "Enough about that. Feed me, and then let's go to my place to reconsecrate the side of the bed where Josh slept and work on getting me pregnant." She began to excite me, and we left for her place. If she wasn't pregnant by the time we fell asleep there, it wasn't for lack of trying. In the morning, she asked when the kids would be home, and I said around 6 o'clock. She cooked me steak and eggs for breakfast, saying I'd need the energy if I was going to do anything nice for her that day. We parted ways around 4 o'clock so I could head home and be there in case my parents arrived earlier than expected. Before I went back home, Carla asked if I'd made my decision, and I admitted that I hadn't. "Are you a good enough actor to pretend that everything is fine?" she asked. I wasn't sure. Is this really necessary? I think the best revenge is to continue what we started over the weekend. I want to keep this up until I get pregnant. Besides, you have to consider your kids. Divorce could separate you from them because courts usually grant custody to the mother. You might get to see them on weekends, but only if Heather isn't too angry to come up with a reason to keep you from seeing them. My advice is to put up with this situation and keep living your life as usual, except that you and I will have wild sex whenever we can. I doubt that's a good idea. Sooner or later, the traitors will get caught. If we're caught, it will hurt our chances of keeping things under control. We caught them because they made stupid mistakes, like using home phones for their secret conversations. Josh was so careless he brought the evidence home in his pants pocket. We won't make the same mistakes. Let's buy a couple of prepaid phones from Walmart to communicate, keeping them hidden so our spouses don't accidentally find them. We'll leave them on our desks and always know when they meet up. But if Heather calls and says she has to work late, I'll have to babysit. And if they meet up at lunchtime, it won't work for me either because I rarely get a long lunch. You sometimes work late, don't you? When you do, she'll need to be home with the kids. I also play cards with friends from college every Wednesday night and sometimes go out for drinks after work. Josh is used to this. Another thing we can do is tap into our phone lines to hear their conversations. Are you in? You've thought of everything, haven't you? Maybe I missed something, but if we work together, we can cover all the angles. Are you sure you want this? I'm absolutely sure. From the beginning, I wanted to get back at Josh. I gave him everything, and he betrayed me. I spoiled him and he still cheated. There's no way I'm letting it go. My idea of perfect revenge is for him to raise another man's child, and what could be sweeter than having that child's father, my mistress's husband, sleeping in his bed? I also want revenge. I think I can get it after seeing how this jerk raises my child. But I'm not sure I can pretend to be a loving husband to a wife who cheats on me. You'll be stimulated by your mistress, right? Over the past 48 hours, it seems you really enjoyed what I gave you. You can have as much sex as you want, whenever you want, and for as long as you want. You know such an offer is hard to refuse. I hope so. And that's not all. Josh wants 2 kids, a boy and a girl, and I want them both to have the same dad. What if the first child is a girl? I know he'll want a son. Are you ready to keep trying? Yes, until we get caught. We just need to make sure that doesn't happen. Yes, and one last thing, try to act naturally around Joshua. It'll be tough not to grin knowing I'm doing my best to give him a child to raise, but I think I can handle it. I'm planning to stay late at work with the girls on Tuesday. What a coincidence, on Tuesday, I'll be working late as well. My parents are dropping the kids off at 6:30, and since they hadn't eaten yet, I took them to Mickey's. It wasn't surprising when they asked for a Happy Meal. After we ate and got home, Heather asked where we'd been and snapped, "Why didn't you call and see if I wanted to join you for dinner? You didn't tell me when you'd be back, and you didn't call my cell phone." I shot back just as sharply, and she gave me an angry look before going to greet the kids. While Heather put them to bed, I started digging into things. I learned how to tap a phone line using a voice recorder and decided to buy a couple. The next day on my way home from work, I'd pick up 2 recorders, not only for my line but also for Josh's. I also needed to call Carla and make some arrangements. I noticed that Heather didn't shower before bed. Maybe she did before coming home, or maybe she didn't. When Heather went to bed, I claimed I had an upset stomach and suggested we could have sex the next day. On Monday at 3:20, my secretary told me that Mrs. Carla Marvis wanted to see me. I asked Shell to let Carla in. When Carla came in, She closed the door behind her and approached me, kissing me. "It's a pity your secretary is outside. If she weren't there, I would have locked the door and we could have had a quickie right here on your desk. If you can wait 10 minutes, she'll leave at 3:30. "Wow," I said, "I was just kidding, but I can definitely kill 10 minutes. She pulled out her purse, handed me her cell phone with her number already saved in it, and said, "Here's the plan for tomorrow. At lunchtime, I'll head over to the Marriott and rent a room." I chose the Marriott because the rooms are accessible through an interior hallway, so nobody will see us coming in. "I'll call you with the room number. I'll finish work at 4:30 and head straight to the room. When you get there, have a drink at the bar. If anyone recognizes you, they'll think you just stopped in for a drink on your way home. After drinking, come to the room where I'll be waiting for you. How does that sound?" I said, "Sounds like a great plan. I'll pick up what we need to tap the phones on my way home. When would it be convenient for me to come and set it up?" Carla replied, "It's already done. I went online, found out how to do it, and got a voice recorder." Shelley just poked her head in and said she's leaving. "See you in the morning." When the door closed, Carla quickly locked it. We had a no-frills session and both reached our peak. She said, "This will keep me going until tomorrow, but you better come back prepared for a long and energetic evening. Maybe you should take some vitamins." On my way home, I stopped by a radio store, bought 2 tape recorders, and 6 extra cassettes. I took a second recorder to listen to the tapes later. I'll keep the recordings in my office for now. The tapes, which contain evidence of the affair between the two lovers, will stay with me until the day I present my case to the judge for the divorce. When I got home, Heather had prepared dinner and brought wine, which was a good sign she was in a loving mood. I was surprised by this. She had spent the weekend with her lover, and now she came home wanting more. Was she a nymphomaniac, or was she simply enjoying herself with her lover and acting like nothing happened in front of me? Maybe someday I'll find the answer to that question. Sex with Heather was always good, she loved doing everything. If Carla was honest and not just flattering me when she said I was better than Josh, I wonder what Josh had that Heather thought I lacked. Another question I might someday answer. After dinner, with the kids occupied in front of the TV, Heather mentioned, "You know you have work tonight, right?" I asked, "Why?" She said I needed to make up for what I missed last night. I wanted to ask why she was cheating on me with Josh, but I kept silent while Heather read to the children. I went down to the basement, found where the phone line was connected, and set up the recording equipment. Heather doesn't leave for work until an hour after I do, so I suspected that's when she and Josh would talk. I could be wrong, she has a cell phone and could easily talk on it while at work. But I suspected the call I overheard was from when she was home. That night, we had sex 3 times, which was unusual for us. We normally had sex 3 or 4 times a week, but only once or twice each time. Just after our 3rd time, Heather brought up having another child. I said, "Are you serious?" Wondering if this had anything to do with Joshua, she mentioned she was considering a vasectomy so I could stop taking the pill while still being safe. She wanted more kids, and after Mike and Anna, we hadn't had time to do much else. Now that we're still young enough, she thought it was a good time before the kids got too independent. But the thought of Heather and Josh trying for a baby made me wonder if Heather wanted to have Josh's first child before Carla could. Did Heather have something against Carla, or was she just trying to claim her lover? Either way, it made me reconsider Carla's plan. I began to think I might need to leave Heather sooner than planned. Then, a very troubling thought crossed my mind: were Mike and Anna even my children? I had to find out. I fell into a restless sleep. The next day, after a grueling session in room 2002 at the Marriott Hotel, I tried to clear my head. I shared my concerns with Carla. "I can't even imagine what you should do," she said. "Should I talk to Heather about Josh now, before she gets pregnant? She might already be pregnant and planning to dump the baby on you. I know what I'd do, but I'm not a man, and I'm not you. What would you do?" "I'd just tell her I don't want any more kids," I said. "And just in case, I'd use a condom until I get a vasectomy. If she does end up pregnant, that's when I'd confront her. I'd suggest a DNA test to see if the baby is mine or Josh's. That should make her panic. If I get a vasectomy now, it could mess up our revenge plan. Just don't do anything until I'm pregnant. I want all my children to have the same father. Maybe Heather was just testing you. You said you didn't want more kids, and that might make her refuse to get pregnant. We'll never know until she tells you herself." She checked her watch and added, "We have a couple more chances for you to make me a mother." On my way home, I stopped and bought a bunch of condoms. That night, when Heather wanted sex, I pulled one out and started putting it on. "Why are you using that?" she asked. "I've decided to use them until I get a vasectomy," I explained. "I really don't want any more kids." "Take it off," she said. "I hate the way it feels. I'll stay on the pill and use spermicide until I can adjust to a diaphragm," she added. "This way, we'll be completely safe." I thought about her discomfort with condoms. Heather was a virgin when we got married, and I'd never used protection with her before. When did she start disliking them, and with whom? Whatever the reason, it only reinforced my decision to confirm the paternity of our 2 children. I remembered that Josh used condoms when he was with Heather, and that's how Carla realized he was cheating. I was still planning to get tested. "If you don't have spermicide, I'll use the condoms I bought today." "I don't have any, but I'll buy some tomorrow and make an appointment with the doctor for the diaphragm," Carla replied. "I don't want you to get a vasectomy just yet, I want to keep that option open in case you change your mind." I left the condom on the nightstand and climbed into bed. We had sex, and after we finished, I went to the bathroom. When I returned, Heather was lying on her side, asleep. I went down to the basement to check the tape recorder. There were a couple of unimportant calls, then a message. "Hello, good morning, honey. Do you miss me?" "Of course, you do. Shall we have lunch today?" "Yes," I replied, "but I think our lunch dates will have to end soon if we don't find somewhere cheaper. These motel rooms are killing my budget. I can't keep pulling from it, or I'll run out of money to feed my family. I'll try to come up with something by Wednesday evening." And here, he used crude language referring to Carla, "Are you ready to get out of the house?" "Not yet, but I'm working on it." "I'll keep my fingers crossed," he said. "I need more from you than what I get in a 45-minute lunch break." "Me too, my love. We'll talk tomorrow." "Certainly. Bye-bye, baby." I almost felt sick when I realized I was with Heather after hearing that. She let Josh use her this afternoon, but I managed to hold back. I found it interesting that my unfaithful wife not only cheated on me but also paid for the room. I wondered how Carla would react if she heard her husband being called out. One thing I knew for sure as I walked up the basement steps was that Heather wouldn't be able to leave the house on Wednesday night. On Tuesday, when I got to work, I took my phone out of the desk drawer and called Carla. When she answered, I said, "Good morning," and then held the recorder up to the phone and pressed play. After she listened to the recording and heard the curses directed at her, she said, "When the time comes, I'll take care of this bastard." I asked her about Wednesday, and she said, "I think I'll have to work late, but I won't tell Heather until it's time to finish up. She won't have enough time to find a babysitter." Did you hear that Heather paid for the room? That doesn't surprise me, Josh has always been cheap. If you're working late, I'll skip my card night and we can meet up. I'll call you tomorrow to finalize everything. At breakfast on Wednesday, Heather asked if I had any plans for the evening. I said no and asked what was up. She said that the girls from work were thinking of having a few drinks after work and chatting, but she couldn't go unless I looked after the kids. I said that wasn't a problem, kissed her, and went to work. I went to the Marriott, rented a room, and called Carla when I arrived. Heather finishes work at 5 o'clock, so I called her at 4:40 and told her I'd be late due to some issues with Henderson's contract that needed resolving before Ethan's meeting in the morning. I apologized for the late notice but said I couldn't leave now, so not to wait up for me. By the time I returned home at night, Heather was already asleep. It was a good thing because if she had woken up and wanted to be intimate, I'm not sure I would have been up for it. For the next 5 weeks, Carla and I met about twice a week, and we always knew in advance what Josh and Heather were doing. During this 5th week, Carla said, "Congratulations, Dad. How about celebrating with the mother of your child?" I asked how Josh felt about this. She replied that he didn't know yet, and that she needed to tell the baby's father first before telling Josh. "You know," I said, "the only thing we haven't done is go on a weekend trip together. I think we owe it to ourselves to celebrate the pregnancy just once, but we need to do it without them figuring it out." It was funny that Carla brought this up today. Josh was set to fly to San Diego to settle some matters with his father's estate and visit some relatives before meeting his lawyer on Monday. I suggested, "If you can figure out how to get away for the weekend, we can go somewhere without anyone suspecting anything." Carla said she thought she could manage it. I took my cell phone and called my brother, who lived in Akron. I asked him to call my house right after I left for work in the morning and tell Heather that I was out of town. I needed to see him over the weekend for a family matter, so I told him I'd call later to explain what was going on. He said he'd take care of it, and we said our goodbyes. I turned to Carla and said all that was left was to decide where we wanted to go. The next morning, Heather called me on my cell just 5 minutes after I left the house. "You need to call Bill as soon as possible. He has an urgent family matter and needs to talk to you." I told her I'd call him when I got to work. I reached out to Bill and learned that his son, Brian, needed a kidney transplant. Bill wanted to know if I would agree to donate a kidney and, if so, if I would come to check for compatibility. I explained the situation to Bill, and he assured me I could count on his help whenever needed. I knew he was reliable because he despised cheating wives. He was a single father after his wife cheated on him, and he'd stayed with the children when Martha died in a car accident. I called Carla to update her, and we agreed to get away for the weekend. I booked room 130 at Arrowhead Lodge, an ironic but fitting choice. At 2 p.m., I called Heather to let her know I was heading to the airport to pack my things. My flight was at 8 p.m., and I needed to check in at least 30 minutes early. "I hope your kidney donation doesn't work out," I said. "I need you to be healthy so we can grow old together." "Damn it, Heather," I continued. "The way you talk makes me think you really love me." "Don't have any doubts about that," she replied. "If only you knew." I ended the call, saying goodbye and hanging up. When I got home, Heather was waiting for me in what she called her come-here outfit, nothing but high heels. "Do you have time to keep me occupied while you're away?" Since I didn't need to rush for a non-existent flight, I said I had time. Afterward, Heather lay on the bed, and as I got dressed, she said, on the phone, "You spoke as if you doubted my love." "Just kidding, baby. I know how much you love me." "Yes, I can see it every time you cheat on me with Josh," I thought but didn't say aloud. I didn't want her to ever doubt my love, not for a second. The weekend with Carla was intense. We made love and then went to bed. We'd wake up in the morning, make love again, and then have breakfast. After breakfast, we'd head back to the room and make love until lunchtime. We'd eat and then return to the room for more lovemaking. We'd sit by the pool for a while, then head back to the room. We'd go out to dinner, have a few drinks, dance, and then make love again. We repeated this routine for the entire weekend, and on Monday morning, we promised to do it all over again before heading home. When I got back, Heather was at work, so I went to the basement and checked the tape recorder. Bill had called on Friday morning, and a few minutes later, Josh had called him. "Have you figured out how to free yourself for the weekend? I'd love to spend a couple of uninterrupted days with you," Josh said. "No, Josh, I couldn't come up with anything," Bill had replied. "And the truth is that I don't want to come up with excuses." "What's wrong? You know I've been feeling guilty about what I'm doing." I love Bob, and he deserves better than a cheating wife. I was planning to tell you it's over. I need to focus on Bob. Come on, Heather, you've been sleeping with me for almost a year now. How can you do this if you love him as much as you say? First, let me correct you, I've never made love to you. I've had sex with you, but it's not the same. The only man I make love to is Bob. It's not just sex. I love him and try to show him that I do every chance I get. If you love him so much, why are you sleeping with me? The excitement, the thrill of doing something illicit, that's what it's about for me. It's a big thrill to go home and make love to Bob after I've been with you. It's a huge release, giving him a few wet moments, but if that turns you on, why not keep going? I never gave him those wet moments. I was always pure when I made love to him. And you know it. I never showered before leaving a motel because I keep a travel bag at work with everything I need for a shower. Bob never even came close to feeling any trace of you. No, Josh, I'll end this before we get caught. I love Bob and don't want to lose him. Just be grateful you got me drunk the first time. Maybe so, but you weren't drunk the other times. It depends on what you mean by drunk. I was drunk with the excitement of making love to Bob after being with you. I wanted to see if there would be the same thrill if I did it sober, so I let you do it a second time. That's the only reason I kept going. We got away with it for a little over a year, but now I realize that the feeling I have for Bob after being with you isn't worth what it would cost me if we get caught and I lose him. Have fun in California, Josh, and when you get home, don't call me. Bye. I thought about taking out the film and putting in a new one. I unpacked my things and went to work. Around 11, I called Carla. When she answered, she said, "I miss you. Is everything okay?" "Yes, I want you to listen to something," I said. "If this is a Friday phone call, then I've already heard it. What do you think?" It looks like she's starting to realize she could lose you. What are you going to do? I've already decided that I'll stay with her only until the kids turn 18. I don't see anything that would make me change my mind. If she meant what she said to Josh, it would be easier for her to hold on. But trust is gone. Even if she breaks up with Josh and they never meet again, how can I be sure she won't start missing the thrill of cheating and find a new guy down the road? You can always hit her with this: if you're really done with Josh, maybe we can move on, but you won't get a second chance. No, I can't do that. It would reveal that I have a wiretap on my phone. As I said, trust is gone. I need a way to keep track of what she's up to. Besides, she knows me and understands that if I knew something, I'd share it with you. She might say something to Josh that would make him think, and we don't want that. Is this your roundabout way of saying we'll keep going like this? They managed to keep their secret for just over a year, but we only managed a few months. They owe us another 10 to 12 months, plus penalties and interest that could extend it even further. I'd like to mention that Carla and I continued seeing each other, on average, twice a week until she was 7 months pregnant. She wanted to keep going, but her belly got so big that I couldn't be intimate with her without causing her discomfort. Yes, we needed to focus on the babies. An ultrasound revealed that Carla was having twins. She gave birth to 2 beautiful little girls. Josh had wanted a son, so 2 years after the twins were born, Carla got pregnant again. This time, an ultrasound confirmed it was a boy. We continued to be intimate until her 8th month, and then we parted ways. We both felt we'd gotten away with it long enough and didn't want Carla to end up as a single mother with 3 kids if we were caught. As Carla put it the last time we were together, the goal was to get revenge on Josh by giving him children that weren't his own to raise. For that to work, she needed to stay married to him. Josh got a promotion that required a move, and since then, I haven't seen or spoken to Carla. But I think about her often and with fondness. It's been 6 years, and as far as I know, based on phone wiretaps, Heather hasn't reached out to anyone else. She and Josh had been carrying on for over a year, and while she might have figured out to stop using the house phone for illicit calls, I've been keeping a close watch and haven't seen anything to suggest she's changed her ways. Heather is doing everything she can to spoil me, and I'm reevaluating my plan to leave her when the kids turn 18, another 4 years for Mike and 5 for Anna. I'll just wait and see. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe to our channel. The next story is even more intense than this one. If you're under 18, don't even think about tuning in.